our first topic here, the money section, how to build a fintech. And this is a Stripe article. And how many people do you think out there know who Stripe is?
Overall, I bet very, very few. I bet business owners, much higher percentage. I'd say 60, 70% of business owners know who Stripe is. I'd say non-business owners, less than 5%.
And I remember when Stripe first came out and I first heard about it, and I think it was back in like 2016 or so, and it was my first time I kind of built one of those little online training products, and it was basically how to finance your business and learn all the different ways about financing your businesses, all the different products out there. Really actually kind of became the foundation for the book, The Business Funding Formula, that I wrote a few years later. And so in that, I was building this course. I don't even remember what I was using. I don't think I was using ClickFunnels. I don't even know if it was Kajabi. Maybe it was. I don't remember. Might have been Kajabi.
I think it was Kajabi.
So I was building it out, and Kajabi's like, hey, if you want to accept payments and sell your little course online, Stripe is the way to go. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, what's Stripe? And so, Stripe is a fintech, and one of the most successful fintechs of all time, started by a couple of young guys in, I want to say, Ireland. And these guys have built Stripe into one of the largest merchant processor accounts in the world. So when you need to collect a payment from someone online, whether that's a debit, credit card, you used to have to jump through a lot of hoops. There was a lot of limitations, and it was very time consuming. And these guys disrupted that with their idea of making it easier to set up a merchant processing account. And I'm sure there was all sorts of, issues they had and accounts with fraud, and they were able to get past all of that. Now their company is worth, tens of billions of dollars, and they have really, especially in the course industry and in coaching and training, and they're connected with Vrbo, which is really taking on Airbnb. Like, they dominate a lot of these industries, and they've done really well. And so Stripe actually put this article together because they do work with a lot of tech companies, and they are, of course, a fintech themselves. And so their team put together this article, like, what are the best practices for building a fintech company? And I guess maybe the first question to start with is, if you're in business finance, and there's kind of two types of business finance, right? There's kind of the old school, you're on the phone, you're emailing clients, you're meeting with them in person, and then there's kind of technology where you turn into a fintech company. So I guess the first place to start is, what do you think, Ty, are some of the pros and cons of setting up a fintech versus kind of being an old school traditional business or financial service type company?
I would say the time without massive revenue, right? When you're building a fintech, inevitably it's going to take time to build it up and create it. And a lot of times it's a lot of, you've got to get tons of users and tons of payments and tons of this and tons of that. It's not so much these lump sums where if you're a consultant, you go get one client, you get paid 10 grand. Now it's on to the next one, on to the next one. So it's kind of that transitioning to having to get many, many, many transactions and many, many, many users, and not just the one-off situations where you get paid. I mean, that's been my experience thus far, is having to kind of shift the mindset and the idea of getting this out to the masses instead of just working with a handful of people.
It's a good point. So when you first get started as kind of a financial services provider, whether you're doing, loans, or you're providing consulting services, or you're just doing financial planning for someone, I mean, there's so many different, there's insurance that are all kind of part of that financial segment. And so if you're doing that one-on-one work, you're going to make a lot more money in the short run than you will in the long run becoming a fintech and really investing in technology and something that can scale to the masses and to, millions of users. But the problem is, with most type of, consulting and traditional business or financial services companies, like, your growth is very linear. You can kind of continue to increase, you can build, you can hire and train a lot of people, but For you to turn that into a $100 million, billion-dollar company, something that's really a sellable asset, it's very difficult to do that if you don't actually build it into a fintech company. And so, you look at some of the different fintech companies out there, and I put together a list of it just to kind of give you guys an idea. Well, what are some examples of fintech companies? So one example, going back 20 plus years, would be PayPal. Right? Yeah. PayPal was a fintech company, and they started out slow, and then they started to grow and grow fast. And the guys behind PayPal, very impressive entrepreneurs. We're talking about Elon Musk, right? He brought his company together with Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel is, a really incredible tech guy himself. He's behind a company called Palantir, which is kind of does online security for the government and has all these different security programs for governments around the world. And so he and Elon Musk came together, and PayPal made it easy to take payments online. Before that, there was really very few options, and it wasn't very secure to receive payments online if you were doing an online business. And then that business sold for, I think, over, if not hundreds of millions, maybe $1 billion to eBay. eBay bought it. So PayPal's an example of a fintech. Another fintech example that we all love and know these days is Venmo. Again, Venmo makes it very easy for you to accept payments. So, for example, my daughter, Kayla, started her own little dance studio in our basement. We got a new wood floor and the mirrors up. And all these parents pay her with Venmo. Makes it very easy. She has her little QR code on the door there, and the parents can easily send that payment. Of course, all of us, if you're not using Venmo, it's a big mistake. You should be using Venmo. It makes your life a lot easier. There's another company called Square. And so a lot of payment type companies, but then you've got companies like Robinhood and Sofi. And you've kind of done some online trading. How have these fintechs made trading something that's available to the masses?
Oh yeah, I mean they've completely changed the game, and they've come out and created these platforms that speak to younger generations too, and make you feel like, hey, even if I only have $100, I can still invest. It was Ashton Kutcher's company. Is it Acorns? I think it's called, where it literally if you spend $2.70, it's going to take the extra 30 cents and invest it for you. So it's always rounding up your transactions and taking it and investing. It's brilliant. And you're seeing a lot of companies that previously existed that are having to transition and become fintechs, and they're starting to kill it again. And then you're seeing others the first one that comes to mind is ADP, right? I would imagine they're losing clients in the masses because their technology's awful, and new fintechs are coming out making payroll so easy and automated.
It's interesting. And I've, going back to 2005, was the first time I started using ADP, and I thought, and ADP was great. They were kind of the fintech technology company back then in 2005. They've been around for a long time, but they had, pretty good online software where you could run payroll and take care of your team and your company, and they take care of the taxes for you, and it was great. And then you fast forward here, and it just is another example of the old, Blockbuster versus Netflix, right? Netflix comes on, they invest in technology, they make it easier. They remove the friction and the pain of having to go to Blockbuster and get DVDs and pay all those late fees and all of the pain that comes with that. Now you can stream it, you can watch it online, you don't have to leave your house. It's very easy and convenient. And Blockbuster goes out of business, Netflix takes over, and that's kind of what you see happen every day with fintech companies. And so you've got companies like Every and others. Bamboo is a big one here in Utah, where you can run payroll and all these different things, and they have better technology than the old guards, the bureaucratic types like ADP. And so that's exactly what happened. So, if you're trying to build a fintech, Stripe talks about a few different things you need to do. Number one, they say identify a high need and underserved audience, or not necessarily underserved audience, but in, a need that there's a lot of pain in, right? There's something that is a pain. So something that we saw years ago was a lot of people would go to the bank to try and get money to start a business, and the bank would turn them down most of the time, would ding their credit, and incredibly, that really hasn't changed much. That's kind of what it's like, and unless you're a big company with a lot of collateral, a high net worth, and you're trying to get financing for a brand new business, you're going to have a tough time doing it going to your local bank. The odds of that happening are very low, probably less than 10% of small business owners are going to get financing from their local bank. And so for us, we identified that as an issue, a challenge, a need that a lot of clients have. It was underserved area, and we could step in there and provide better financing options to these small business owners that were trying to get off the ground. So just an example of taking something that is not overly complicated, but right now there's not a lot of groups that are doing a good job of that. And so that's sort of where we jumped in, right? And so then you've got companies like Stripe where, hey, there's lots of companies where you can, make your credit card payment through them. You think of the old machines at your grocery store, and those keep on getting a little bit better here and here, but you swipe your card and you make your payment. And so some of these companies have made that much, much easier, and that's what these fintech companies are doing. So you identify that need and underserved audience, and then what's the next step, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to get the feedback from the customers. You've got to understand the problems and the challenges. And I think that's one thing I would add to that first step, Leo. Identify a need and underserved audience. What I'm finding a lot in fintech space too is groups are going out there. They're finding businesses that are absolutely killing it, that are providing a solution, that are solving the problem for the need, and they're just doing it a little bit differently, right? You look at Brex and Ramp and Divvy. They're all kind of doing the exact same thing. You look at Podium and Weave and a million different variations of exactly what they do. I mean, that they didn't see an underserved audience. They saw an extremely served audience and said, I'm going to take this and do it my way and just tweak it a little bit. And they're taking a huge portion of that served audience.
Exactly right. And they're like, hey, we're going to do it a little bit better. And then they'll maybe focus on different verticals. I knew they do a lot with small medical practices and dentists. Does a company like Weave, and then Podium was, just reviews, right? Hey, that you're going to do these reviews. It's funny. I was looking at when I lived in Draper. One of my neighbors there, nice guy. He would come by and visit us once in a while. Was a guy named Ben Diltz, and he started. He was actually the co-founder of Lucid Software. And so I don't know why I was researching this last night, just looking at these different companies. And so tech company, just a software that basically they have a whiteboard software, and then they have that software where you can kind of
the flow charts.
Yeah, the flow charts. Yeah, they made those flow charts, and they were the first ones. And that's all they did was flow charts. And these flow charts, they got users in all these companies, all the big tech companies. And then he brought in his co-founder, Carlson, who had been working at Google previously, and he was going to school here at BYU, and they came together, and now that company, I think, is valuated at $3 billion. They've raised over $600 million in funding rounds, and just remarkable, what they've been able to do. I am curious if they're actually turning a profit at this point, if they're, not turning a profit, which is always, to me, kind of baffling. After so much time, you just never seem to turn a profit. That's got to be concerning if you're a tech company. But boy, they've done a masterful job. And I remember it was funny, people in our neighborhood, they had no idea what this guy was doing. And I remember even some neighbors were talking negatively about him. I'm like, boy, you guys should really respect this guy, what he's done. So get customer feedback about problems, challenges, and so that's it. People will tell you all the pain points, oh, I hate ADP. They're so difficult. Their technology's inferior. I can't connect it to my CRM. And so when this other company came around, we're like, oh, you can connect to our CRM. So now what used to take us 10 hours to get payroll done, what's it take us?
Jillian, you're right there. What does it take? 30 minutes, if that?
To upload, 30 minutes.
I mean,
yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it literally took our need from having a full-time employee spending sometimes 10, 15, 20 hours a week, complicated Excel spreadsheets and formulas and mistakes.
Yeah, tons of mistakes.
Mistakes were made, and now it's an automated process connected to our CRM. The mistakes made are almost none, and it takes a 20th or a 30th of the time that it used to. That's technology.
We can technically pay daily now. That's what's crazy is every day as commissions are generated, we could hit submit and pay our reps every single day, but
Remarkable.
We choose not to. Yeah, I mean, they get customer feedback and understand the problems and challenges. The first fintech or tech company that comes to mind when you say that is Lyft, right? You see Uber come out, and Uber's killing it, which seriously disrupted the taxi cab industry. And it's a very interesting story. If you haven't watched that Uber show, I think it's
Super
on
pumped.
Showtime. Yeah, it's very intriguing. But Lyft comes out and realizes and understands, because of problems and challenges, that Uber's crushing it with their clients and their riders. But guess what? Their drivers absolutely hate it. They hate the way they're getting paid. They hate the way they can't get tipped. And so Lyft comes in and completely changes that. And all of a sudden, all the drivers are going from Uber to Lyft, and it became this huge fiasco. But I think Lyft did a phenomenal job of getting the feedback and the problems about not just their clients, but their contractors and their employees.
So, I mean, that's what happens, right? So, excuse me, for us, for years, we would help clients get loans, lines of credit, business credit cards. They'd have their bank accounts, business, personal. And they would say, how am I supposed to manage all this? Like, I got to log into 15 to 20 different websites. It's very confusing. How am I going to make the payments on time? I am super stressed about this. I am not super pumped, right? And so that's what they would tell us. And for years, we're like, oh, man, there's got to be a way to do this where they could see it all in one place and manage their business and their net worth and do it easier. And so after a period of time, as an entrepreneur, you hear that problem and you're like, well, let's solve it.
Yeah.
That's what entrepreneurs do. They take a problem, they solve it. And so documenting our journey, we're like, all right, we're going to solve it. And it's been, an up and down process and finding the right technologies and then bringing in the right technology people to build that out. And now the result of it is myfigures.com, which you can, manage all of your accounts in one place. That is built out. The money manager is built out, and clients can see all those things. And then there's additional features and improvements that we need to make. And we want to be able to automate a lot of what we do with business finance. And then, what about cash flow? Can you actually, 70% of small businesses never earn any profits. Like, they're struggling to actually earn profits and a decent income at the end of the day. And so they need help. And so those are the challenges we're listening to. And even as we build this out further and we go through raising, we've bootstrapped to an 8-figure business, but to take that next step, unless we want to just drain all the profits and even, more than that, like that's what it takes to hire developers and build that out. And that's where you really do have to get in that capital raising ecosystem to build your own fintech. And then it says, after that, diversify your revenue streams. I'm actually not even sure what they're meaning by that.
Well, that's something, I think SoFi has done such a good job
That's
at
a
when
good
you talk
example.
about diversifying your revenue streams. SoFi comes out and says, okay, we're going to solve a need and we're going to provide personal loans.
Yes.
And they made a name for themselves. And then they go out and they start investing and they get VC money and they become an actual fintech. Instead of just doing personal loans, you can now bank with SoFi. You can now invest with SoFi. You can buy crypto with SoFi. You can get health and life insurance with SoFi. You can literally, it is a full-fledged financial marketplace. There's affiliate marketing inside there. So that's something that SoFi, I think, especially if you watch their stock, they struggled. They were killing it. I thought they were the best loan company out there, and all of a sudden their stock is just falling and falling and falling and falling. But then you realize all of these different things that they're adding to their marketplace. And I think during that time their stock was just crumbling. They were just investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into their platform. And I think they're starting to kind of recoup a little bit, even amidst all of this crazy stuff going on in the fintech world. SoFi is really, really diversifying their revenue streams.
Yeah, I really like SoFi. I think they're building a really strong foundation. And, you can always consult your investment advisors or whatnot, but they seem like they've got a great foundation. And so they started with personal loans. They also do student loans.
Yeah.
And mortgages and all those other things, stocks and retirement accounts and insurance. And they have some stuff on credit there as well. And so they've done a great job of really building this membership up and providing a lot of value. And they've done it where other lending companies have not, and they have diversified. You look at a company like Lending Club and some of these others, Prosper. Prosper was the first that started doing these online loans, and they've really struggled from all their financials and things that I've read online. And maybe one of those reasons is they didn't ever diversify. Once you have a core product, then you need to start providing other solutions that are in the same path there. So for us, we have a membership with My Figures where you can manage all of your accounts. We're going to have our business finance marketplace accessible right there in My Figures. There's going to be an affiliate opportunity. We're going to have a cash flow piece where you can manage your profitability. And instead of complicated QuickBooks, which is a mess, you'll be able to know where your profit and loss stands at and start with a profit first mindset. And then there's going to be other supports and other systems, and there's going to be all these different income streams that provide value to our customers. And so that's where we're at in this journey of building out our own fintech, and just thought it would be interesting to kind of share that with you guys so you can see what the keys are to building a fintech